So having said all that, and I hope that it's been mentioned here by Gemma, where you are in Ross Valley, that there's a minimum 5 copy purchase. That's it for today. But I would like to say thank you again. Thank you all for coming up, and open up to questions if anyone would like to ask them.
Excellent. I'm just going to turn the lights back on.
Oh, I can see you now.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you can all see yourself, but this little bit here is what Lenny can see at the moment. So if there are questions, if you want to come up and talk closer so that he can see you, you can, or you can just stand up where you are. Does anyone have any questions for Lenny?
I've got one. Do you want me to come up here?
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Thank you.
When you start off with your story, do you know how it will end?
I know a little bit. I mean, basically, from what I can understand from authors that I've spoken to and authors that I've read about, there's 2 types. There's the one that plans everything. I think people like Tom Clancy, you know, have a complete flow chart, and James Patterson know exactly what's going to happen during the course of the book. I'm not there. I do make it up as I go along. I've probably got a general sense. Once I get a cast of characters, I've got a feeling of what they may or may not do, but part of that attempt to sort of create the energy in the book and the tension in the book is I'm not really sure what Jack's going to do next or what's going to happen next. Maybe, you know, like a chapter ahead. So I do tend to like to let the characters run. It's a little bit haphazard. I can spend some time writing a section might be 5 or 10,000 words long, and Jack will turn around and go, "You're an idiot. I would never do this." Just going to have to cut all that because that's all just rubbish. So I'll go back to the start. So it can be a little bit haphazard, but I do find that it works for me because it energises me because I'm not exactly sure. And actually it's a great question too, because the other thing that it reminds me of is there's basically 2 types of books. You know, there's a book that's based on characters, and then there's books that people write in terms of fiction that are based on ideas. So sometimes someone gets an idea and turns that into character. I think that's a really hard trick to pull off, and obviously there's great novels that have done it. But for me, it's really about the characters. I love them to be real. And then I get a stronger sense of what they may or may not do if I understand them a little bit as characters, as human beings. So yeah, I do. But maybe it's just a case of me being extremely lazy and I just love to make it up as I go along.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question about research. How much research do you actually do? And did any of it involve criminologists or art dealers? This book obviously has an art component.
I can say with the art component, my wife is an artist, so my research was done over all the years that I helped her install pieces of art. And let me tell you, artists are much more demanding than writers ever are. So the research there was done over some time. The main research that I do is, how can I put it? It's like I always say I walk my books a lot. So when a story starts to germinate, when ideas start to flow and I've got some characters, I tend to go to the places where I'm going to set them. So in a sense it's a research because I do check, you know, where, how, if I've got a bus in my book, it is a bus that actually does occur, it's not fiction. There's a certain element of reality that I will research. The only bit of criminal research that I've done, and I don't do a lot simply because I don't have a character as a police officer or a detective, I don't need to worry too much about forensics and procedure. However, with the new book, there was a scene that I needed to just check because I wanted to make sure that it was correct. And so this was my discovery of research with the police. I rang the local police department in the area where I was going to set the scene. And I got on the phone and I said, "Yeah, hi, my name's Lenny, I'm an author. I just need to ask you a question. If a car was abandoned on Oxford Street, which police station would be the one that would respond?" And all I got was, "Can I please have your name and state your address and whereabouts, please?" I was sort of, no, it hasn't happened. I'm just asking a question because I'm a novelist, but he's not. Sorry, sir, I want you to repeat your name and tell me exactly where So that was kind of the end of my specific research, and I get in trouble with the policeman. But it just depends on the story. If there's an element there, I mean, obviously, I've said before that Jack's not me, but obviously I invest him with some experiences that I have had and some emotions. But the main one's been sort of the book trade and the love of books. And that's also the reason why Jack is a bookseller. Because one of my great desires was, I have this opinion, not only did I rediscover the pleasure of reading, but I got a new insight into what books actually represent for us. And this is something that can never be captured in statistics and never be exactly expressed. And if you read a book that you completely love and you pass it to someone, you're not just passing a book over, you're passing over a little bit of how you see yourself. It's an emotional exchange. Books are a currency between us. We can tell each other things about ourselves that you can't say. They can only be they're intuitive and they're emotional. I mean, the book doesn't have to have anything to do with your life, and yet your response to it and the fact that you've been moved by it says something about you. So, my main bit of research, I suppose, luckily, is reading and trying to get as many books together and think about that because Jack's a second-hand book dealer, and throw in a little bit of his opinions that go there. So, I mean, the love of books really shapes the character.
Having said that about your characters and the references to bookshops and so forth, where on earth did you dig up the Russian gangster? He was probably the most fascinating character in there. Apart from the fact he had very good taste in music, but his philosophy, his hope, is that based on a real character, and where did you find him?
My characters never, well, haven't been so far. I would have to say that would never happen, but they're not based on real characters or real individuals. I tend to sort of pick things up as I go along. Usually for me, a character, because I don't like to set it on a specific person, because I feel as though if I've collated or collected a whole bunch of stuff to say a whole range of emotions and experiences, and I mean through talking to people. So I mean my character's always based in human life. But when they get the need for them to be characters in their own right kind of prevents me from ever really desiring to serve a particular person. Now with Victor Kablunak, the wonderful Russian in the book, I had the intention that I wanted to express a side of Jack where he was basically attracted to a man, I don't mean in any other way other than his character, who was obviously on the wrong side of the tracks. What is it, in a way to sort of illustrate how even us leading good lives, and we're not in the underbelly, we're not in the criminal world, but what is it about these people that's fascinating, what we might like. So Victor himself is a sort of conglomerate of, I'm trying to think what's the best way to put this. I wanted him to be, first of all, suave, and in many ways, because in the book, and this is not giving anything a plot away, there is a sort of James Bond, Ian Fleming, references in the book and part of the plot. And I wanted him to have a certain sort of over-the-topness. I wanted him to be a very, very strong character. And the wonderful thing about having a criminal in a novel such as The Black Russian, who's a little bit over the top, a little bit larger than life, is you can give him what sometimes might be termed sort of grandiose statements, because I wanted him to have a particular philosophy. So, having said that Jack's not a character that I explore crimes through, or the criminal mind, he's a character that I explore a moral compass through. Victor Kablunak, the Russian, is actually the opposite. He is a criminal. And I wanted to get across a sense of how he thought about what it is that he did. And in his basic philosophising with Jack, I wanted to do two things, and that was create a relationship between him and Jack. And as you said, the big thing for Jack is they suddenly have obviously a common love of a particular type of jazz music. But I wanted to show a certain history and experience in that character that led him to that point. Because often with criminals, things start to evolve until that name comes along and solidifies that person. And also in a name you get so many connotations. It doesn't work. I mean, one of my favourite things to do in a class was to put a name up on the wall. Georgie Benson. And I would say to them, who is he? I would give no description, just a name. And there would be an awkwardness to begin with, and then suddenly someone would say, he's 45. And someone else at the back of the stage, back in the class would say, no, he's not, he's 62. And we'd come to some kind of consensus. And then I'd say, well, what does he do? And their imagination started to flow. And we always fill these spaces behind names. And for me, in fiction, it works really, really well. And I must admit, I'm particularly proud of Victor Kablunak's name. So when that came along, it solidified the whole character. And after that, it's a touch intuitive. explain it beyond that. I hope I've answered your question.